This wasn't just a benching. It was a blowtorch held to the NFL's carefully polished brand. What began as a roster call in Cleveland exploded into a national spectacle. Players, fans, and even the commissioner suddenly on stage, yelling into a drama nobody signed up for. The moment Joe Flacco took the first snap while Shedeur Sanders stayed on the sideline, something snapped. Screens went dark. Hashtags caught fire. Within minutes, what should have been a routine decision read like a corporate crisis. Fans didn't merely grumble, they protested. Viral clips of watch parties shutting down, viewers deleting streaming apps mid-game, and angry threads demanding refunds spread faster than any highlight reel. But the shock wasn't only in the volume of complaints. It was who was walking away. Lifelong Browns supporters who'd weathered decades of missteps. The people whose loyalty usually survives every rough season. When the core base begins to bail, you're no longer dealing with a bad call. You're facing franchise-level damage. And then the league stepped in. What normally stays in locker room conversations suddenly turned public, with leaders and pundits framing the benching as more than a tactical move. The commissioner's blunt words amplified the controversy, recasting a coaching choice as a national emergency. That's the part that makes this different. A single personnel decision migrated from playbook debate to primetime crisis, dragging sponsorships, ratings, and reputations along with it. At the center of all this is a young player who's become far more than a backup quarterback. Shedeur Sanders arrived in Cleveland carrying hype, marketability, and a promise of something electric. Bench him, and you don't just bench a player. You threaten a media asset, a cultural moment, and a revenue stream. Coaches can argue football logic. Executives watch dollars. When those two collide, the fallout is never small. So what really happened here? Was this stubborn coaching, a misread of personnel, or a league protecting its golden asset? The answers start with one viral clip and expand into questions about power, priorities, and what the NFL values most. And what comes next will tell us whether Cleveland recovers or becomes a cautionary tale. But before we decide where blame belongs, let's look at the numbers that turned whispers into a roar. Numbers usually tell a quiet story in the NFL. Ratings rise, ratings dip, and executives adjust without saying much. But this time, the numbers screamed loud enough to drown out the game itself. Industry trackers reported a sharp drop the moment lineups were confirmed. Flacco in. Shedeur out. Viewership didn't just slide, it plunged in real time. And what made this collapse so alarming was how visible it became. Within minutes, fans were posting screenshots of their TVs going dark, proudly documenting the exact moment they tuned out. On TikTok, entire watch parties went viral for switching over to Netflix after the first quarter. Twitter threads filled with comments like, "No Sanders, no reason to watch," while hashtags surged to the top of national trends. For advertisers and networks, this wasn't just noise, it was panic fuel. Even rival streaming platforms noticed the ripple. Netflix and YouTube reportedly saw unusual Sunday spikes in traffic that lined up perfectly with the Browns' broadcast window. Fans weren't searching for other games. They were abandoning football altogether. One broadcast insider captured it bluntly. The Browns didn't just bench their quarterback, they benched the audience. And that's the nightmare scenario for a league that has sold itself for decades as ratings proof. Football was supposed to be immune to viewer flight. Suddenly, a single coaching decision proved otherwise. But if the numbers lit the fire, what came next poured gasoline on it. A fan backlash so loud it forced the entire league to listen. The numbers were shocking, but the fans made sure the world knew exactly how they felt. What followed wasn't quiet frustration, it was an uprising. Within minutes of kickoff, hashtags like #PlayShedeur, #Fire Stefanski, and #NoShedeur surged to the top of social feeds. This wasn't random chatter. It looked coordinated, like an online protest unfolding in real time. Fans weren't just complaining. They were documenting their exit. Screenshots showed televisions being switched off, apps deleted, and watch parties dissolving before halftime. TikTok videos spread like wildfire. Entire bars chanting, "We want Shedeur," before flipping the channel. Families booing at the screen, kids shouting for their favorite QB who never touched the field. Some of those clips racked up millions of views, turning the Browns' quarterback controversy into late mid-game. One viral comment summed it up. "This isn't football. This is malpractice. Wake me when Sanders plays." And this rebellion wasn't contained to Cleveland. Fans nationwide rallied behind Sanders, making the controversy trend well beyond Ohio. Some even threatened to cancel their NFL Sunday ticket subscriptions, a direct shot at the league's most prized revenue stream. For the NFL, this wasn't just noise. It was leverage. Fans had drawn their line in the sand. No Sanders, no support. If the fan revolt was already loud, the game itself only made things worse. Cleveland didn't just lose to Detroit. They looked lifeless, predictable, and stuck in slow motion. Joe Flacco, the veteran chosen to steady the offense, delivered the exact opposite of what fans wanted. His conservative style led to 3-and-outs, stalled drives, and timid field goal attempts. Instead of injecting energy, he drained it. Watching the Browns' offense felt like watching a clock tick down with no suspense. Meanwhile, Detroit looked explosive. Their quarterback fired deep balls, extended plays, and kept momentum alive. The Lions built a comfortable lead before halftime, turning what was supposed to be a marquee matchup into a one-sided showcase. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. One team looked like the future. The other looked like it was stuck in the past. By the third quarter, the outcome was obvious, and the broadcast metrics told the same story. Viewership didn't migrate to other games. It vanished. Reports showed streaming platforms like Netflix and YouTube spiking during the exact same window. Fans weren't searching for better football. They had given up on football altogether. Even inside the stadium, the mood collapsed. Chants died out, energy drained, and rows of fans filed out early. Social media piled on, with one viral post reading, "The Browns' offense isn't bad, it's unwatchable." The scoreboard sealed the loss, but the real damage came off the field. Cleveland looked broken, and every snap without Shedeur Sanders only fueled the firestorm. What happened on the field was bad. What happened in the boardrooms was worse. The NFL is a business before it's a sport, and Cleveland's quarterback drama hit that business where it hurts: ratings, sponsors, and money. Networks had circled Browns games as valuable primetime slots, expecting Shedeur Sanders to deliver the kind of engagement advertisers dream about. Instead, they watched audiences vanish in real time. For broadcasters who had spent billions securing NFL rights, that wasn't a minor stumble. It was a warning. One executive reportedly put it bluntly: "The Browns didn't just bench a quarterback, they benched our audience." Sponsors weren't happy either. Big brands had lined up campaigns around Sanders' star power, banking on his appeal to younger fans. Without him on the field, those ads suddenly looked like wasted dollars. A marketing insider admitted that entire strategies were being reevaluated, saying, "We paid for Sanders' spotlight, not for empty seats and tanking viewership." Even the league office couldn't ignore it. Reports suggested that NFL officials held urgent conversations about the Browns' handling of Sanders, with some insiders hinting at quiet pressure from above. After all, the league thrives on storylines and star players. When one team's decision threatens the NFL's most valuable commodity, attention, intervention becomes inevitable. And it didn't stop there. Rumors swirled about reducing Cleveland's future primetime appearances to protect ratings. That kind of move doesn't just hurt pride, it impacts revenue, recruiting, and relevance. What began as a coaching call had now snowballed into a league-wide headache. And the fallout wasn't just external. Inside Cleveland, the cracks were spreading fast. The fallout wasn't just in the headlines. It was tearing Cleveland apart from the inside. Players, coaches, and executives suddenly found themselves at odds, each side pointing fingers over who was really to blame for the chaos. In the locker room, frustration bubbled. Veterans whispered that the team was being handicapped. One lineman reportedly told teammates, "We're not just losing games, we're losing fans, money, and respect." Defensive leaders were equally blunt, pointing out that without ... Sanders, the offense couldn't sustain drives, leaving the defense gassed by halftime. For players who had prepared all week for a competitive fight, it felt like sabotage from their own sideline. Upstairs, the tension was even worse. General Manager Andrew Berry, the man who helped bring Sanders to Cleveland, was said to be pushing hard for a change. Sources claimed he presented data showing Sanders' impact on both competitiveness and fan engagement. Yet his recommendations were brushed aside, deepening the rift between front office and coaching staff. And at the center of it all stood head coach Kevin Stefanski. Known for his calm, steady demeanor, Stefanski was suddenly being painted as the league's newest villain. Every decision he made seemed to backfire. On the field, with fans, and now within his own organization. Ownership wasn't blind to the storm either. Reports suggested Jimmy Haslam was furious about the backlash, yet torn on whether to back his coach or cave to mounting pressure. Fire Stefanski mid-season and admit failure, or stay the course and watch the franchise's reputation crumble further. Cleveland was no longer dealing with a quarterback controversy. They were facing an identity crisis. Through all the chaos, the falling ratings, the fan revolt, the boardroom panic, one name remained at the center: Shedeur Sanders. For Cleveland, Sanders isn't just a rookie quarterback. He's hope. He's the spark fans thought would finally break the Brown cycle of disappointment. From his swagger in college to the spotlight he carried into the NFL, Sanders represented something fresh, a quarterback who could electrify the offense and energize the fan base. That's why his absence hit so hard. Many benching him wasn't a strategy call. It felt like betrayal. And Sanders himself hasn't added fuel, at least not directly. By most accounts, he's been professional, showing up early, grinding through practices, staying engaged on the sideline. But cameras have caught the subtle signs: the head shakes, the sideline chats with coordinators, the quiet frustration in his body language. Sources close to him suggest he's starting to wonder if Cleveland is the right place to grow, if the franchise truly sees him as their future. Around the league, the buzz only grows. Analysts debate whether the Browns are stalling his development, protecting him, or outright wasting his talent. Sponsors see him as a marketing engine. Fans view him as the face of tomorrow. Even opponents admit he has star potential, which makes the whole controversy bigger than football. Sanders isn't just waiting for a chance to play, he's being positioned, intentionally or not, as the NFL's next must-watch storyline. And whether Cleveland realizes it or not, their handling of him may define the team's reputation for years. The Browns thought they were making a routine coaching decision. Instead, they triggered one of the biggest controversies the league has seen in years. A single choice, keeping Shedeur Sanders off the field, sparked a ratings collapse, ignited a fan revolt, rattled sponsors, and even drew fire from the commissioner himself. That's not just bad optics. That's a full-blown crisis. Now Cleveland stands at a crossroads. One option: Kevin Stefanski caves to the pressure, puts Sanders in, and hopes the rookie's energy can rescue what's left of the season. But even if he does, the damage to trust may linger. Another path? ownership steps in, forcing a change from above. That could appease fans, but it would strip Stefanski of his authority and expose just how fractured the organization has become. The final option, staying the course and keeping Sanders sidelined, may be the most dangerous of all, risking not just losses on the field, but long-term collapse in fan support and credibility. For the NFL, the lesson is just as clear. Football may be a sport, but it's also entertainment. When fans tune out, when sponsors start second-guessing, when a rookie becomes more valuable than the scoreboard, the balance of power shifts. And at the center of it all is Sanders, not just a quarterback, but a symbol. To fans, he's hope. To sponsors, he's a brand. To the league, he's a storyline they can't afford to waste. The only question left, will Cleveland embrace that reality, or will they let stubbornness turn a promising future into yet another Browns disaster?